If you enjoy hearing these eerie tales and want more to help you drift off or keep you up at night, don't forget to tap the like button. It really helps the channel grow. My wife has started eating me alive, and I don't know what to do. My wife has started eating me alive, and I don't know what to do. I'm using this throwaway account just to get my thoughts out. My name is Jason, and hers is Mariana. We met in late August of 2021. I was smoking on the side of the building I worked at. I had just seen the death of my mother at the hands of a heroin overdose 3 days earlier. I didn't sleep a wink for those 3 days, so I sunk myself into my job at a terrible hardware store. She walked round the corner, past the giant propane tank before she checked around her shoulder to look at me. Our eyes met instantly, then she smiled. Her beautiful black hair crept down her back. Her dark eyes were like out of a painting. She looked somewhat like my mom, in a silly way. I smiled back. I even managed to give her a half-assed "How you doing?" She kept walking. I've been wondering how my life would be if that's all it ever was. But it wasn't. She came back to the hardware store the following day. Mariana had stepped in looking for a handsaw. She saw me working behind the counter, then proceeded to ask for my help. She had a notepad, which was open. She told me the exact details of what she wanted: a folding pruning saw. I checked her out, even gave her my employee discount. She placed the notepad down on the counter when paying, and left without it. I was going to chase her to give her the notepad, but I saw what it said. All that was written were the 2 words of "call me," along with her number. Later that night I did. She answered on the 3rd ring. We talked for hours, then scheduled a date for the following Saturday. Welp, then it was history. We had a wonderful date. During that first date, I learned she was from Venezuela and why she was in town. The reason she was in town is because she had been visiting her uncle. We spent several more nights together, kissed the 4th date, then she went back to Venezuela the day after our 5th. We had kept in contact, then started dating officially a few weeks after she returned to Venezuela. I offered to visit there several times. She said she didn't want me to. We had no relationship hiccups, not until I cheated on her. It was just once. I had gotten used to sexual polygamy because of the relationship with my ex-boyfriend. I should go into more detail on him, but we'll leave it at this. He didn't love me, just used me for money, along with my unconditional love for him. At least he used me for that until he left me for another guy. He wanted an open relationship, so I had gotten used to that. Maria said she had forgiven me. I don't think she ever had. She managed to visit the US again, then her visa was extended so she could move. This was all to the chagrin of her mother, who never wanted her daughter to leave, let alone for a gringo like me. Her mom said I would never understand their values. I never met or spoke to Maria's mom. We got married early 2023, March 5th in specific. She was lucky enough to get her green card back in September. At this time, I had switched jobs to a professional kitchen as a line cook. Her uncle gave her a job at the company he owned. Soon enough, I was able to switch from working full-time to working part-time. Then I could give Maria my undivided commitment as a house husband of sorts. We're both young, I'm 33, she's 31. I was able to re-engage in my interest with the guitar. One autumn evening, I played it for Maria. I failed a lot, and she didn't judge me for it. Understood my nerve damage. She always called me pretty. Never judged me for the mistakes I made because of the nerve damage in my arms, or the scars that caused them. Back in November, Maria had asked me about Thanksgiving and what the meal plans were. I told her I'd make whatever she wanted. She said all she wanted was me and gently hugged me from behind, then kissed my cheek. A couple of weeks later, about the 14th, she had asked me randomly, "Have you ever wanted to eat anyone?" I responded no, then asked if she wanted to. "Yes, I do." "Want to eat me?" My sarcastic tone picked up. "Would you let me?" if you ask nicely." We both giggled like baboons. The next night she asked me, "Jason, can I eat you, please?" "Sure, grab the carving fork." I smiled, then went to look at her, yet her face was bare, with no emotion. "Maria?" "Jason, I want to try eating someone, and you said you'd let me if I asked nicely." I felt a bit confused by this statement. I wanted to make a joke, but couldn't. My eyes fell to the floor, only to rise back to her face. I was going to say no, but couldn't. I'd do anything for her. I needed her more than anything. When I wouldn't be able to see her because I was at the kitchen, or she was at her job, I wouldn't be able to feel my face. I wanted to ask her uncle for any job positions at his company, but she never let me meet him. I didn't care to fight for it. "I'll take a bath and cut off some of the dead skin from my foot for you, okay?" She nodded. I went upstairs, where I drew myself a bath. I grabbed my safety razor and unscrewed the blade from it. After soaking in the hot water for a while, I carefully cut off the dead and hard skin from my heel. I didn't do anything too fast or too deep. I took my time, and by the time I was finished, both of my heels were bare, red, with small slivers of calluses. I kept them on the outside of the tub. I drained the water and dried, then clothed myself. I took the chunks of dried skin and made my way back down to the kitchen. There, Maria was waiting, right where she had been when I entered the tub. I went over to the stovetop. I quickly pulled out a Teflon pan that I put on a coil. I placed olive oil in the pan, then laid the dead foot skin in the oil. I didn't turn on the heat yet. I knew the bits were going to be hard. I wanted them to be hot, not colored. That would make them too hard. I chopped a yellow onion into a fine dice, and plenty of cilantro leaves as well. I took some small corn tortillas and microwaved them wrapped in wet paper towels. I then turned the stove on medium head to start heating up, along with cooking the bits of dead skin. I knew the Maillard reaction wouldn't occur before they were completely clean to eat. 200 Fahrenheit on the outside, guaranteed to be the same on the inside. Crispy, but not colored, not charred. I was able to make 4 tacos out of the 5-inch tortillas. I put down a tortilla, added the hunks of skin, the onion, and cilantro on top of it. I placed down the plate of tacos in front of Maria. Along with that, I served homemade habanero pineapple. Hot sauce. I went to clean up before I heard her soft, beautiful voice. "Aren't you going to join me? It's our meal after all." My eyes turned to her, but my body dared not. Had it been humanly possible, I believe that I would have pushed my eyeballs out of their sockets to avoid moving my body. "Sit down and try it with me, Jason." My throat swallowed, but no saliva was being produced. I tried to turn on my heels, but a burning softness shot up my legs. My whole body turned to face her. Although my bulging eyes couldn't distract the sensation of discomfort I felt. I walked ever so fluidly, like a salmon swimming to the bear. My body fell into the chair next to her. She smiled and slid the plate to be in between the two of us. "You first? It's your cooking, dear." I sat up and gave her a weak smile. With coldness rising to my fingertips, I pinched and grabbed one of the 4 tacos, then bit into it. The initial flavor of the soapy cilantro and harsh onions that hit my palate, with the mealy texture of the tortilla to my tongue, was no match for what I felt next. My teeth struggled to bite through the hot flesh. My tongue seared. I tried to chew through my dead, hard, and stringy pieces of flesh that were from my heel. I sawed my jaw forward and back to try and cut up the almost mealworm-textured flesh. I couldn't bear to chew it again, so I swallowed it. The spiky, rough ball of food fell down into my esophagus. I had wished it blocked my windpipe, but I was not lucky enough for that. I lowered the taco and looked at her. "You didn't try it with the hot sauce?" "Oh no, I couldn't. I wanted to leave a lot for you." "Don't be silly." She took the spoon in the container and placed a big scoop onto the remaining half of my taco. "Go ahead." Her beautiful eyes hit onto me. Dread overcame my being. It felt like a portal to the abyss opened up right next to me. I shoved the food into my mouth but couldn't maintain a single bite. I felt my body start to regurgitate as I rushed my way to the kitchen sink and expelled the mouthful of food onto the awaiting dirty dishes. "Ah, can't handle your spice, hun? More for me then." She then ate every single bite of food without wincing. I cleaned the kitchen and went to our bed. I don't know how long it took until she joined me. When she went to kiss me goodnight, I nearly threw up again. I couldn't stand her hot breath hitting, then going into my nostrils. I didn't eat until 3 days later. On the third day, when Maria had gone to work, I made myself some ramen while Maria was at work. I saw she had ate most of the kitchen over the past few days. My gentle nerve of anxiety continued. The house I lived in was no longer my home. I stared at where she sat just a few days prior. The ramen didn't soothe my anxieties. I had trouble even choking down the soft noodles and warm broth. The gelatinous, long noodles that shoved down my throat, followed by the occasional warm broth which felt like bile. I tried to occupy myself. I trimmed my nails, both finger and toe, and put the trimmings in an empty bathroom trash can. After that, I just went to bed. I woke up at around 9 p.m. Maria should have been well at home by this point. I went downstairs into our living room and she wasn't there. I saw her keys on the coffee table and her shoes by the couch. I felt as if a soft, gentle ping pierced my ears and echoed down into my brain. I turned ever so slowly to the kitchen, expecting to see her eyes staring at me. Nothing. No Maria, no threat, no figure, no abyss. I didn't want to search for her. I went back up. To the bedroom, I pushed, like a magnet being attracted. The warm, soft bed is the only thing that had left me any sense of comfort or warmth. I stood in the center of our room. The quick urge to empty my bladder overcame me. My body trekked its way to the toilet to relieve myself. But as I entered the bathroom, there she was. Maria was hunched over the toilet, contorting her body over the toilet lid and into the garbage bin. Her index and middle finger extended in and out, taking each individual bit of my toe and fingernails into her mouth. Her head turned to me, and those beady, beautiful eyes pierced me through my soul again. The tightening of her jaw crunching through the keratin that came from me didn't cease. She was just looking at me while doing it. I said nothing and made my way back across the hall into our bedroom. I felt myself fall flat, to fall asleep. Sleeping is all I did for the next while. I quit my job shortly after. The feeling of having to take raw chicken with my tongs and then having to place it on a grill left me with no good feelings. I yelled at my manager, threw my card to clock in and out at him, and left. After that day, all I did was lay around and sleep. I had the occasional meal or snack when Maria wasn't around. We didn't celebrate Thanksgiving. My family had wanted to visit and finally meet Mariana, but I didn't want to see them. Maria asked me to make tacos de pie only once more. By the time, the skin on my heels had grown back. Not hard and dead, but back. It was much more difficult to slice them up that time, but I did it. This was on the 21st of December. She didn't make me eat any this time. On the 23rd, I went out all afternoon and evening drinking with a few friends. I got a ride home from an Uber. Mariana met me with her normal warm smile, and I felt so happy to see her. My arms locked around her neck, and I felt myself kissing her forehead. She asked me questions about my night, and I could barely answer. I was too drunk to form sentences. I went to bed after saying hello to Maria, then to sleep shortly after. I dreamed of wild dinosaurs, and Krampus visiting me because of naughty boy I had been. When I woke up, my eyes instantly shot to the left. Maria had tied my left wrist to the bottom of the bed frame along with my neck. If the haystack charm wasn't enough, a hard gag was shoved deep in my mouth. She was holding the same folding pruning saw she bought when we first met. I couldn't move. Years of sleep paralysis and anxiety taught me to stay still. She shoved down my carving fork, about 3 inches from the top of my wrist. She tightened the skin by pulling towards her, and laid the saw blade flat against my arm. The teeth punctured through my skin and tugged viciously on the nerve endings in my arm. She knew what she was doing. She wasn't going deep enough to puncture into the subcutaneous tissue, but just above it. Warm blood splattered around, the teeth on the saw blade lost their grip and fumbled out from under my skin several times. Once she got close to reaching the carving fork, she removed the saw from under my skin. The blade that was so perfectly polished and kept for the past few years, was now covered in crimson fluid. As she pulled the carving fork's tip out of my wrist, it felt like she pulled out my bone marrow. She bit the very tip of my flesh and tore it off from my arm. Her favorite striped sweater was stained, and her once warm eyes hit my face. They looked like blank orbs with light pushing from behind them. The once beautiful vinyl-like strands of her hair were unkempt and knotted. The smell of iron was almost as heavy as the air. She took her time with her meal, enjoying it down to the last inch. When it reached that last inch, she stuck her fingers in my mouth and pulled out the gag. Then with the fork, she skewered my flesh onto the tip and placed it in my mouth. The cold steel and room temperature meat pushed on my tongue, like if I was being treated for sideropenia. My teeth hooked onto the fork, and she slid it out of my mouth. The flesh in my mouth felt like San Nakji. I spit it out to her feet. "What are you, fucking crazy? Why would you do this?" "No more, Mariana. You're hurting me. Stop. Stop." "Go, damn it, Jason, I don't want to hear that. You abandoned me practically on Christmas Eve, going God knows where, doing God knows what. How do you think I'm supposed to feel? You cheated on me. You betrayed me. You hurt me." Mariana paused. And you spit out the food I prepared for you. Why would you do this to me? How could you?" She snipped off the zip tie on my wrist and sawed off the rope around my throat. I felt like a puppy who misbehaved and was punished. My nose has been shoved in my shit. Maria took a pillow and blanket from our bed and went downstairs. I dare not follow. I cleaned my wound. She had bought a bottle of isopropyl alcohol that was on the master bathroom counter. I wiped off the saw and placed the carving fork on our nightstand. I slept in my own blood that night, curled up in the fetal position. When I woke up, Maria was already at work. I felt cold, thirsty, and alone. I properly dressed and treated my flayed arm. I degunked the folding mechanism of the saw and honed my carving fork. Cleaned our duvet, flipped our mattress, and bleached the floor. I then sat all day in the kitchen, like the puppy I was, waiting for my owner who I so disappointed. When she came home, I couldn't look at her. I sat by her, followed her, did what she wanted, but didn't look at or touch her. I didn't see my dad for Christmas, didn't visit Mom's grave, didn't drink or launch fireworks on New Year's. I've just been making Maria happy, as best as I could. We hadn't kissed since Christmas Eve, until earlier this morning. When I woke up, she had made me breakfast in bed. Eggs, sausages, and nice crispy bacon. For the first time since November, I ate a meal I had enjoyed. She had been learning how to cook since she felt bad I was the one doing all the work in the kitchen. Her arms folded around me, and our bed felt comfortable again. As I finished the last bit of my breakfast, she kissed me on the cheek. My eyes closed in contempt. When I then smiled, her teeth sunk deep into my cheek. I quickly turned around and punched her as hard as I could in the face. My face was now ripped off, and in her mouth, her tear-filled eyes looked up at me, and she held the side of her face. Maria lurched her way over to me. The bit of my flesh now dropped out of her mouth. She stopped right in front of me. "I just want your heart," she wept, placing her hand on my chest. "I want you to love me, like how you used to." My eyes too became filled with tears. I let myself fall around her. I held her tighter than I ever had before. "I'm sorry. I've never stopped loving you." She looked at me, and I her. It was like our first time kissing again. When our lips locked, I felt a wave of relief that I hadn't felt since the night this started before Thanksgiving. I asked for some time to myself. She agreed and went downstairs and left me in our room. This brings me to writing this. She hasn't forgiven me for cheating on her, and I haven't forgiven myself. My wife. I hurt my wife in a way I never wanted to. I have failed as man and as a person. I don't want to see anyone else anymore. Not my family, nor my friends, and certainly not hers. I just want to see her, to be around her. I do not want to die, but I know she'll be the death of me. I want her to get help, and not to go too far with this. Yet, Mariana, my wife claims she wants my heart, but she's never given me hers. I can't lose her. She won't lose me. But I don't know how to assure that. Only a few ideas are creeping through my mind and holding my soul hostage. My wife has started eating me alive, and I don't know what to do.